What is up guys, it is Ross, here to bring you a brief guide on Retro Rewind Karting. Retro Rewind is a mod made by ZPL which aims to feature every track across the Mario Kart series and then some, and the mod features several interesting additions, most notably buffs to karts to bring them up to the same level as bikes. As the lead developer of Mario Kart Wii Limitless, you know I love me some balance, so naturally I took a shine to these new and improved karts. As of late, there's been a lot of renewed interest in how karts function within the broader Retro Rewind community. This intro's gone on long enough, so let's dive into the art of karting in Retro Rewind. This first section will be split up into two parts: how karts work in general, and how karts got changed in Retro Rewind and how those changes impact them. On a surface level, karts have two major differences compared to bikes. They can't perform wheelies, and their mini turbos have more than one tier provided the player keeps their drift going. Not having wheelies is a pretty big drawback, since you lack the 1.15 times speed boost on straights that bikes can achieve, and while snaking does close the gap a little bit, bikes still have the speed advantage by a pretty sizable margin. Where karts can keep up is in their extended mini turbo boosts. With the orange sparks, karts mini turbos last for 3 times as long as bikes do, meaning that 1.2 times mini turbo bonus can be further taken advantage of. Unfortunately, in vanilla Mario Kart Wii, this ends up being a raw deal, since bikes can combine wheelies and mini turbos to turn their 1.2 times speed bonus into a 1.35 times speed bonus, meaning their mini turbos will pack much more of a punch despite being shorter, reducing kart's advantage. In addition, charging up a mini turbo takes 54 frames, and charging a super mini turbo for karts takes an additional 60, meaning that going for the higher tier of boost creates a very real opportunity cost. In layman's terms, bikes' wheelies give them greater reward for lower risk. Now, what changes does Retro Rewind make to karts? Well, there are two simple changes that go a long way in making karts able to compete with bikes at top level play. The first is the addition of Ultra Mini Turbos, a third tier of boost that gives karts a much higher speed multiplier while lasting 4.5 times as long as a bike mini turbo. This essentially means that karts now have the tools to breeze past bikes on sections with long turns, presumably like how Nintendo intended. The second change isn't technically kart exclusive, but they gain a hell of a lot more mileage out of it than bikes do, and that's Hybrid Drift. Essentially, what Hybrid Drift does is combine Mario Kart Wii's two drift modes, automatic and manual, into one driving style. Comparing vanilla karts to karts from Retro Rewind are two completely different things. This guide will mainly be focused on the stuff that isn't present in vanilla, so if you want to know the basics on karting, you might want to check out a quick tutorial or two before continuing with this video. Otherwise, let's take a deeper look at how these mechanics can be used to push karts to their limits. But before we do, let's draw some quick comparisons between the two different types of kart you can use, because Retro Rewind has this funny little toggle where you can choose what type of drift to give to your vehicles. We have outside drift karts and inside drift karts, and they actually play radically different. A lot of people online claim that karts would magically become viable if you just slapped inside drift onto them. Yeah, not quite. Their drift radius is drastically reduced, and not being able to swing outwards means they miss out on a fair bit of utility when it comes to selecting their lines. Conversely, however, this drifting stiffness can work in their favour in a lot of instances, as it can allow them an easier time charging their mini turbos on straightaways or wider turns. To make up for their reduced cornering capacity, inside drift karts have a 20 frame buff to their base mini turbo stats. This becomes a 60 frame buff to super mini turbos and a 90 frame buff to ultra mini turbos, meaning that if you manage to get a purple boost off, it'll last a second and a half longer than it would if you were on outside drift. However, while these mini turbo boosts last longer, they pack less of a punch. Specifically, the speed modifier for ultra mini turbos are noticeably lower for inside drift karts than they are for outside drift karts. This effectively means the outside drift karts get reduced rewards for squeezing out ultra mini turbos, albeit at a much faster rate, whereas inside drift karts get a greater long-term reward, but said reward is more gradual. Understanding the differences that come with choosing your drift type is crucial for understanding which type of kart is preferred in each situation, as well as which one feels right for you as a player. Okay, now we can get into Retro Rewind kart mechanics. Ultra Mini Turbos are a third tier of mini turbo boost that get triggered after holding your drift for an additional 30 frames after your kart builds its orange sparks. They last for 4.5 times the kart's base mini turbo length, and they offer a considerable speed bonus over a kart's regular mini turbos. For inside drift karts, the speed bonus is 1.236 times the kart's base speed, and for outside drift karts, it's 1.32 times the kart's base speed. Now the really cool thing that's unique to Ultra Mini Turbos is that their speed boost duration can be increased by activating additional Mini Turbos while the Ultra Mini Turbo is still active. And any Mini Turbo that gets stacked this way will have their duration increased by 1.5 times what it would have been. This caveat gives way to two different techniques, UMT extensions and UMT chains. UMT extensions are the result of using a blue Mini Turbo right as your Ultra Mini Turbo is about to run out to give it a moderate increase to its overall length. You'll want to release your Mini Turbo as late as possible so as to get the maximum benefit from the added Mini Turbo length, but be sure not to hesitate too much or else you'll miss the extension and will only get a regular Mini Turbo, which grants a much lower speed boost that only lasts 2/3 of the length. Karts in general can use this technique to give themselves more of a fighting chance on straightaways, where their lack of wheelie exposes them, but inside drift karts get particularly good use out of this, as the 1.5 times multiplier to their blue Mini Turbo duration pairs really well with their plus 20 Mini Turbo buff, allowing them to do this repeatedly. UMT chains are the result of charging up an orange Mini Turbo while your Ultra Mini Turbo is active to completely refresh the boost. This works because the 1.5 times duration bonus of a stacked Super Mini Turbo gives it the exact same duration as an Ultra, effectively resetting the timer on when your UMT is about to expire. UMT chains are extremely useful since only needing to charge a second tier of boost to keep your Ultra alive naturally takes much less time and commitment than going out of your way to charge another Ultra Mini Turbo, and some corners simply don't allow for that. The timing for UMT chains can be extremely tight depending on the vehicle, but knowing where UMT chains can be done will give you a major advantage over other players. For this reason, I think counting out loud how much time has passed in between Mini Turbo boosts is a legitimately helpful tip. Knowing how to maximize your UMT boosts is one of the core components of Retro Rewind karting, yet being able to stack them at all is something that gives karts an insanely high skill ceiling that I am a massive fan of. Now, let's briefly go over the advantages of using Hybrid Drift. Hybrid Drift replaces automatic drift in Retro Rewind, and it hybridizes automatic with manual, hence its name. With Hybrid Drift enabled, players will still possess the ability to hop and charge Mini Turbos, on top of all the passive benefits automatic drift provides. More immediate handling and drifting, a 20% bonus to the kart's handling stat, and being able to maintain top speed while realigning are the three major factors. There are some genuine reasons as to why players would want to stick with manual drift, but personally I think they're mainly comfort related things and Hybrid's advantages are much more practical. Because of how Hybrid works, Retro Rewind karts can actually do some pretty nutty things, and there are two advanced techniques in particular that get spawned from this new drift style. Those are Auto Excel and H-Tech. Auto Excel is the act of abusing the fact that you don't need to hop to initiate a drift in order to accelerate faster. This works because drift acceleration stats are generally much higher than regular acceleration stats for vehicles in Mario Kart Wii, and while this holds true for manual drift also, manual drift requiring you to waste precious time hopping, ergo preventing you from accelerating, means they cannot perform this tech. To perform Auto Excel, all you have to do is accelerate normally until your vehicle reaches 55% of its base speed. This is the threshold your vehicle must reach before a drift can be started. Then start holding alternating directions on your control stick to initiate rapid drifts while maintaining your alignment. While this tech is already useful for taking minor knockbacks such as getting shocked or hitting a banana, the Mini Beast can notably reach max speed from a standstill faster using Auto Excel than it can with a standstill Mini Turbo, which is both extremely useful and extremely funny. H-Tech involves activating an auto drift briefly in between manual drifts to greatly improve your alignment options for the drift you're about to perform. There are two main applications for H-Tech. The first involves steering into the turn you were going to drift into to attack the impending turn much tighter. This application is typically used in instances where a player would want to take sharp lines while slowing down as little as possible. Oddly enough, the automatic drift will always be set to inside drift regardless of what transmission the player selected, which means outside drift karts will have inside drift if they use hybrid. This results in them gaining an enormous traction boost when following up a manual drift with an automatic one, which can be very useful. The second scenario involves steering away from the turn you're about to drift into so that you can swing out further, and this application is typically used when a player wants to squeeze out a UMT chain while otherwise having precious little wiggle room to do so. I should also note that since this H-Tech method results in a wider drifting entry, this technique becomes very useful when playing on inside drift kart since it helps show up inside drift's linear options. It's also much faster to execute H-Tech than to double hop, which is the strategy that inside drift kart would normally have to do if they want to take a wide berth. Because of how sensitive automatic handling and drift can be, H-Tech may take a lot of playing in order to get used to. To get better at H-Tech, I recommend practicing GC and DK Mountain and N64 Bowser's Castle, as those two tracks utilise H-Tech a lot in their runs. Due to Hybrid Drift's additional utility when it comes to manoeuvrability, it can allow players to get mini-turbos they wouldn't have been able to reach before. Thus, Ultra Mini-Turbos and Hybrid Drift synergize incredibly well together. Finally, I'd like to do a quick rundown on the karts that have niches in Retro Rewind, and the karts that I would recommend using if you wish to maximise their advantages or play into a certain role. I'll split each vehicle I'm about to talk about into 3 categories: the Big 3, the Wi-Fi Warriors, and the Niche Brigade. The Big 3 consist of Mini Beast, Wild Wing, and Flame Flyer. With excellence in both speed and mini-turbo, these karts are a cut above the rest. Mini Beast is a little slow relative to most of the viable karts, but its mini-turbo dominion cannot be underestimated, balancing this out. And while it's light as a feather, it's far and away the most nimble of the karts I'd recommend using, especially benefiting from H-Tech as a result. It's also by far the most customizable vehicle in my opinion, with a whole slew of characters with interesting game plans and usage cases. Koopa Troopa and Drybones have their place as the mini-turbo kings, Baby Daisy makes its speed weakness sting a little less, Baby Luigi allows it to bump around the mock bike at the cost of reduced mini-turbo, Toadette can uniquely drift through medium off-road as long as an ultra mini-turbo is active, pick what you want your mini beast to specialise in and go nuts. Flame Flyer is the polar opposite of the Mini Beast, being the fastest of the Big 3, but with the worst mini-turbo reserves, making UMT chaining very tricky, especially on outside drift. It also has that fat-ass hitbox that leaves it fearing shells and other weapons, but that weight stat allows it to put other frontrunners in their place real good. Dry Bowser and Wario are useful for making its mini-turbo dilemma more manageable, while Rosalina prevents speed creep attempts from the pesky Wild Wing. He's much more situational than in vanilla due to his non-existent mini-turbo, but rest assured Funky Kong's blistering speed keeps him a viable option in certain scenarios. Lastly, there's the Wild Wing. A perfect blend of speed and mini-turbo, it's the most consistent of the 3 vehicles and is typically regarded as the best in an online environment. Daisy can match the Flame Flyer's speed while rivaling the Mini Beast in mini-turbo and manoeuvrability, while Birdo and Diddy Kong can maximise its mini-turbo and give it more UMT chaining options, while bringing their own advantages to the table. Diddy Kong offers a bit more acceleration, while Birdo Wild Wing crucially ties the Flame Runner in the weight department, giving it good bump resistance. Speaking of bump resistance, Luigi's even higher weight while still having decent top speed makes him an option worth considering too, though proceed with caution as his lack of mini-turbo makes him difficult to use. The Wi-Fi Warriors consist of Honeycoop and... nope, just Honeycoop. Honeycoop doesn't really have a place at all in time trials, being slower than even the Mini Beast while having lower mini-turbo than both it and the Wild Wing. In a vacuum, it's strictly a worse Wild Wing. However, Honeycoop is the heaviest of all the recommended karts, and it's more manoeuvrable than the Flame Flyer while having higher mini-turbo, so I think it's still viable in an online environment. I think character options are arguably a little more balanced for Honeycoop compared to Flame Flyer. You can get away with using Funky Kong more due to its greater mini-turbo, whereas Wario and Dry Bowser aren't as appealing since they make an already slow vehicle even slower. And finally, there's the Niche Brigade. I won't go too in-depth with these vehicles as they're a clear step below the 4 I just listed in my opinion, but they have their place in a time trial environment and on the right track they can wreak havoc. The Jet Setter and the Sprinter are insanely fast, outspeeding even the Flame Flyer, but they have terrible mini-turbo and their cornering is abysmal. However, it's that cornering weakness that gives them a claim to fame in the first place, allowing them to chain boost together on the widest of turns to capitalise on their top-notch top speed. Lastly, the Tiny Titan and the Super Blooper are pretty slow and have poor mini-turbo, meaning they won't be able to keep up on most tracks at all. But on tracks with a lot of off-road shortcuts, as well as tight enough turns to charge their boosts before their ultra mini-turbos bleed dry, they can become uncontested terrors in the right hands. I should also mention that due to all of these vehicles having terrible mini-turbo stats, I think they are significantly better suited to inside drift than outside drift, since their mini-turbos will become usable with inside drift's buffs. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, guys, gals and non-binary pals, if you've made it to the end of this guide, thank you so much for watching. I think Retro Rewind karts are extremely fun and satisfying to use, and seeing this underground interest in how they work fester and grow slowly but surely is so cool to see. As a matter of fact, my good friend Chase actually kickstarted a server on Discord called Retro Rewind Kart Lounge, where players can play competitive Retro Rewind events exclusively using karts. If you're interested in such an environment and would like to join, link is in the description. Hopefully this guide will prove useful, both to people looking to learn Kart for themselves, and for people that already use Kart but would like to push their skills as far as they can go. This is Ross Duncan, signing out. Goodbye.